Good morning. The Committee on Parole is called to order. The time is 10:55. Our remote location is Raymond Laborde. Would the staff at Raymond Laborde please introduce themselves?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Warden Marcus Myers. Deputy Warden Keith Turner.
Raven Heath, classification.
Joseph Bordelon, record.
Good morning. Thank you. Our first case is going to be Mr. Tristen Pena. Mr. Pena, if you would please introduce yourself and give us your DOC number.
Tristen Pena, my DOC number is 626751.
Thank you, Mr. Pena. I want to explain our process to you. First, I'm going to read some information into the record, and then we're going to have a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we will allow those persons who wish to have input to speak. Currently today, you have three persons who are here on your behalf to speak. Ms. Lauren Sisk, Jeremy Barnett, and Gail Sistrunk. Your two attorneys are here as well, Grace Bronson and Ms. Rachel Carter. At the end of the hearing, you'll have an opportunity to say whatever you'd like to say to the board, and then your lawyer will close it out. Do you understand our process, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
Mr. Pena, this is Tristen Pena, DOC number 626751. His date of birth is September the 6th of 1996. He is a third felony offender. He has a parole eligibility date of May the 13th of 2023. He's not eligible for good time. He has a full term date of October the 26th of 2032, and he is currently serving a 16-year sentence after being adjudicated a habitual offender on the charges of simple burglary. Mr. Pena, is that information basically correct?
My sentence is 15 years, not 16, sir.
I'm sorry?
My sentence is a 15-year sentence. Everything else was correct except for.
Did I say something other than 15 years? I thought I said
You said 16.
15 years is your sentence. I may have misspoke, but it is 15 years. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. Mr. Pena, your case was assigned to me, so I'll begin our interview process. How old are you, sir?
I'm 26 years old.
Okay. And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
On these charges, I have a little over 5 years and 8 months credit.
Now, you say you've got 5 years, 8 months credit. How long have you been in prison, incarcerated on these charges now?
A little under 4 years. I had 18 months of that was on the street, I believe.
Okay. Weren't you sent back to prison after you were in the Grove around, what was that? What year was that?
That was in 2022. That was July of last year.
So that's how long you've been in prison. You were out on parole, being supervised by the reentry judge. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So how long have you been back in prison this time?
For 1 year now.
Okay, so approximately a year.
Yes, sir.
So tell me why you're back in prison.
I think it's only fair to kind of go back a little bit further than my initial relapse that led me here.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Let's go. That was sort of a bad question, I guess. Let's talk about your drug issues. When did you start using drugs?
I was 12 years old when I was first introduced to drugs.
And what did you start using?
Marijuana.
And what did you progress to?
Throughout the years, I progressed to alcohol, and then when I was 17, I started using Xanax, other prescription pills.
And how often were you using drugs?
At the time, I was using them every day. There wasn't really a day that I missed.
How far did you go in school?
I completed the 10th grade, and then I left school and I attained my GED.
When did you get your GED and where?
I got it through North Shore Technical Community College. I was, I believe, 17 years old.
Now, you got a tremendous criminal history. So explain that to me. Why? Why so many burglaries? Why so many crimes at your young age? You're a third offender. So tell me why.
I think it attributes all to my substance abuse. And when I was younger, I was 17 years old the first time that I was arrested. I was using Xanax and marijuana. I was drinking. I was hanging out with some older friends. I was impressionable at the time, and this was what the people that I was around, this is what they were doing, and I thought it was the only way for me to fit in and be accepted. So I went along with them, and I committed a lot of these crimes from the age of 17 to 20 years old. But it was all directly related to my substance abuse. I didn't have a reason to steal things. I was just trying to fit in.
So how long have you spent in your young life? How many years have you spent in prison altogether?
About 4 years, sir.
And so what kind of programs have you taken while you've been in prison?
I took a slew of programs while I was in the Reentry Program. I took everything from RDAP to Sober Group of AA, Celebrate Recovery, Thinking for a Change, pre-release. I've gotten VOTEC trade certificates in small engine repair through the EETC. And I'm sure there's a few that I've forgotten.
Yet when you got out of the reentry program, which is an excellent program, one of the best programs we have in prison, you went back to using drugs again. I mean, you were being supervised by a judge, weren't you?
Yes, sir, I was. I didn't, when I got out of Angola, it was February of 2020. So I went to court one time to see the judge, and then after that, COVID shut the whole world down. So I wasn't able to use the tools that I had learned. You know, I was in Sober Group AA, and that was what kept me sober while I was in Angola. I was using drugs in Angola, and I reached out to my mentor in the program, asking for help, and he was able to speak to Warden Easley over there, and she got me into MRT, which is more recognition therapy. From that point, I turned around and I was doing the right thing. And when I came home, I didn't have that support. I couldn't go to meetings. The counseling that we were doing wasn't. They were still trying to figure out Zoom, and I tried to white knuckle it and handle my emotions the best that I could. But I was dealing with some depression because I've always been a social person. And I came home and there was no outlet. I went to work and I came home. There was nothing for me to do or people to meet, meetings to go to, and you know, dealing with this depression, I made a mistake and I decided to self-medicate, and that led me.
Well, perhaps while COVID was still going on, you were being drug tested. You flunked time and time and time again your drug training. You went back to using drugs, is that right?
I used alcohol, yes, sir. I did.
Okay. So what's going to make this time different? Why are you changed now? And how are you going to maintain your sobriety?
When I got to the Grove, I met numerous people in the AA community that I was able to. It was the first time I was able to be in society and have the tools that I needed. Really, I had the group. I was living in sober living house. I had all these contacts and outlets to, not bottle up my emotions and not, if I was dealing with depression, I had an outlet to express myself, and I wasn't afraid to express myself anymore for fear of, looking weak or being judged this way or that way. And in the process of all that, I got treated finally, and I got on the right medication for my depression. And since the last 2 years, I've been sober since August of 2021. And
when you were in prison before you got out into the reentry program, you took Celebrate Recovery, you took a lot of substance abuse educational programs then. None of that stuff.
Yes, sir. I did take a lot of programs, but when I came home, I didn't have access to meetings. I couldn't go to, there's two places that do Celebrate Recovery where I live at. I couldn't go to either one of them because of the pandemic.
You couldn't go anywhere, but yet you still got drugs. You couldn't do the thing to keep you sober, but you could do the things to get you drugs.
I want to express, I'm not denying that I did use alcohol. I didn't have to go anywhere but the corner store. And that was a mistake that I made. I know that, and I want to be held accountable for that. But I know that that was a mistake, and I have I have these tools and these options to go to meetings and do this, and I've made a commitment to myself to maintain my sobriety and do whatever I have to do to make these meetings. And
Besides the 28-day treatment you went through at the Grove, what other substance abuse inpatient treatment have you had for your drug or alcohol use? Substance abuse.
I went to a program they call Fountain Blue. It was another program.
When was that?
That was a few months prior to the Grove. That was kind of the process of me getting to the Grove. I went there first, and that's where I was finally treated for my depression and got on the right medication that didn't make everything.
Why did you leave the Assisi house, the Bridge House?
There was drugs in the Assisi Bridge House, and I tried to to reach out to my case manager and stuff, and I couldn't get in touch with her. They wouldn't allow me to use the phone, so I left and contacted my case manager with Reentry Program. And then from there, I was instructed to go to the Grove through my case manager.
Why were you ultimately revoked and sent back to prison?
For the drug test that I had failed, they put a warrant out. There was a miscommunication between my case manager and my my probation officer about my whereabouts of me being in the Grove at the time.
All of that was explained to the judge, but the judge nevertheless revoked you.
I never did get a chance to explain that to the judge.
You never what?
Never did get a chance to explain that to the judge at all.
You never had a hearing? You just were revoked without going to court and having any sort of a hearing?
We submitted a file into evidence, a motion to let me explain everything, and the judge accepted the motion, but I wasn't allowed to present it at all.
What can you tell us about Mr. Pena while he's been there?
Well, Mr. Marabella, I haven't had a real good opportunity to interact with Tristen. He's only been here a couple weeks. He's still in our reception center. He hasn't even been processed into facility yet. But just, as in talking to him and looking through his file, it's obvious. I mean, he was given a great opportunity with the program at Angola, and it didn't stick. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to hold the young man down. I'm saying this because it's not my job to just say things and let him back out in society. It's my job to have him prepared to go back in society when he does go. And he has a lot of excuses. He ironically has the same name as my oldest son, and he's just about the same age as my oldest son. And I've raised him with tough love, and I'm telling this young man he makes a lot of excuses for himself. He doesn't seem to understand the consequences of his actions, because I don't know that he's had the consequences that he needs. I think the one thing that he fears is staying incarcerated. So, maybe a little time here with me and some more programming. We have good programming here. We have things that I believe he needs to take again. It's obviously more substance abuse programming. I think he needs victim impact to understand that his burglaries, the things he did impacted society. They're victims of those things. And the things that he did and the chances he was given were taken lightly, and they shouldn't be taken lightly again. Again, I just want to see him get out and succeed. He's a young man. He has a good future ahead of him. I definitely do not think he needs to, I don't think he'll do all these 15 years, but I think he needs help, because I don't want to see him reoffend.
Thank you, Warden. I appreciate your comments. Any questions? Let's hear from your supporters. Is Ms. Lauren Sisk on the line?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Ms. Sisk, would you please introduce yourself and let us know what you'd like us to know?
My name is Lauren Sisk. I'm Tristen's significant other. I'm also a licensed mental health professional. I'm aware that Tristen has struggled with substance use disorder in the past that have led him to make some poor decisions. As a mental health professional, I've seen many successful recoveries, but these recoveries often have relapses and stumbles along the way. Relapse is really common in recovery, but it doesn't correlate to failure. It's important that we uplift these individuals with the proper support, which often looks like group therapy, individual therapy, rehab centers, and medication regimens. More often than not, substance abuse disorders are comorbid with other mental health disorders, and I don't believe that incarceration really allows for the treatment and care that substance use disorders and other mental health disorders need in order for true rehabilitation for these individuals. He's been in my life for the past 3 years, and I've witnessed his growth and his determination to overcome these struggles. I know that he's made a lot of mistakes as a teenager and a young adult, but he has matured since, and he's been committed to rehabilitation. Prior to this incarceration specifically, he began seeking a relationship with God in order to better himself in his life. He also began seeking out healthier friendships and relationships that encourage and bring out the best sides of him. I know that if he's granted parole, he will take this opportunity for a second chance to create a bright, successful future for himself. He's a kind, caring, and passionate person who can be a productive member of society with proper support, and he has many people around him who love him, including myself. I'm committed to standing alongside him in this journey and offering support in any way I can, not only personal support and encouragement, but also using my professional connections to help him with mental health support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll hear from Mr. Jeremy Barnett. Barnett? Barnett, one?
Yeah. He's not going to be speaking.
He's not.
He's
Okay.
just here in support.
All right, okay. I had that wrong. How about Gail Sistrunk? Is she going to be speaking?
She's here.
Okay.
His mother.
This is Trump, yes.
What's it?
It's in the way.
No, right, I know.
We've been around. We can see it.
Yeah, we make a difference.
I can get everyone. First, thank you for this opportunity to be here. So I can offer my thoughts and my support for my son. My husband would have been here, but he has a very nasty cold, but he offers this in absentia. And I would like to express to you, in addition to the letter that I submitted, my belief in what Tristen has learned over the last few years. It's like my husband, or someone's hate to say he's right, said about Tristen for years. If Tristen can survive the testosterone storm of late adolescence, he will grow into a fine young man. It's no secret he made awful mistakes when he was a teenager, ones that made the parent just cringe. But through his trials and even a global pandemic that affected so many of us, Tristen actually used the skills that he gained in the last few years in order to navigate his way in finding a path to lasting sobriety. He found the growth. It meant so much to him that he found it himself. And I'm immensely proud of that decision that was using his skills. He is not a recidivism statistic in terms of new crimes. That is actually something that I as a parent, am very proud of. No charges since 2017. He was so much younger. He found good counselors in rehab. He found appropriate medication and critically new kinds of friends. And that's extremely important. I'm very, very proud of his efforts and his dedication to his sobriety, which have then allowed the other elements of his life to function properly. His future employer, who has a job waiting for him now and who he worked with before, reaches out to me wondering, when is Tristen going to be released? We're waiting for him. And I'm thrilled with this. He has a job, he has goals, he has dreams of a future, potentially continuing his education. That's what's thrilling to me. His family relationships are solid. And I'm certain, most of all, that he's grown up. And beyond the destructive behavior of years ago. What I'm most sad to say is really the things that he has learned. And what he has learned is the consequences of substance abuse and the legal ensnarement and the tragedy of profound loss. A loss of things you will simply never, ever get back. The loss of seeing his nephew and nieces grow up. Birthdays gone, holidays lost, and the loss of his best friend, Brandon. These are things that people never recover. And those are lessons that we all take, and they have affected them. He knows now that nothing is worth this loss. Nothing is worth this loss. And you have to live with honor and cherish these moments and such special people. And he did. Most grateful. He did have this benefit of renewed faith, which was missing in the teenage years. I'm sure he will continue on this positive path, likely with ups and downs of everyday life, but he'll face them with the skills and the dedication of someone who now knows they want to be a sober, productive member of society, a friend to those less fortunate, and his continued role as a beloved member of our family and circle of friends. That is his desire and who he desires to be. So it is my hope and my prayer that this board will give him the opportunity to do so and go to parole.
I understand Mr. Jeremy Barnett is now on the line. Is that correct? All right, Mr. Barnett? Can you hear us, sir? Mr. Barnett?
It's going to, something's wrong with it.
Mr. Barnett, I don't know if you can hear us or not, but we can't apparently connect with you.
I can get him on the phone.
Um. Is,
I get it.
all right, we'll get him on the phone. Never mind. Okay. Mr. Pena, is there anything you'd like to say before we turn it over to your lawyer to wrap it up for us?
I just would like to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Ms. Wise does have a question.
I just have one question, young man. Who introduced you to marijuana at age 12? Who was it?
At the time I had two friends. I had, my mom raised 5 children and the house was strict. My mom was an educator. I wasn't allowed to do anything of the sort, but I had 2 friends. They were twins and they had kind of a rougher home life. And so I was able to go over there and experiment.
All right, I really hear you. You had 2 friends that what now?
They had a rougher home life than I did growing up.
Uh-huh.
I was able to go over there and experiment with different things. At that
Okay,
age.
so it was people your own age that introduced you to marijuana?
Yes, ma'am.
Or
I
was it
believe-
older adults in the house?
It was people my age. I think they had an older brother that was about 19 that didn't live in the home, but I think the older brother introduced them and they.
Okay, I was just curious. All right, thank you for answering that. That's all I had, Jim.
Thank you. Mr. Pena, if you'd like to make a brief statement to the board, we'll be glad to listen to you. Then we'll turn it over to your lawyer.
I would just like to start by saying that I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I know I have made some terrible decisions in my past. I have hurt a lot of people, not just the people that I in the community that I stole from, but I've hurt all of my loved ones. Like my mother said, by missing things. Today's her birthday and I'm incarcerated once again. And I know deep in my heart that I can do better. And I made a commitment to myself that I will persist in my own success and I will not stop until I succeed and accomplish the goals that I've set for myself. And I just pray that you give me that opportunity. Thank you.
I know about that.
Good morning, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's my pleasure to represent Tristen Pena, and it makes my job a lot easier when Tristen himself is able to describe to you what his path has been and his family is as well. but I did want to highlight a couple of things for you. Tristen was 17 to 20 when all of his criminal activity took place. It all involves burglaries and that kind of things that he has acknowledged stemmed from his substance abuse, which started when he was much younger. And substance abuse has been his struggle that he has had since age 12, that he will continue to struggle with day after day for the rest of his life. And that's something that he is aware of and is acknowledged and has accepted. He was given a great opportunity to go to reentry court. He was sent at the age of 20 to Angola Penitentiary to do reentry court. And as he has admitted, when he got there, he was still experimenting and using drugs while he was there. Of his own accord, he went to his mentor and asked for help. He has talked to Keith Bronson and I about a relationship that he formed with Warden Anne Marie Easley, who helped him into the RDAP program and the MRT program. And through that, he got himself back on track, took all of the classes that he listed for you, all the classes that I've heard you recommend and have been extremely helpful to so many of my clients in the past. And as you all know, those things don't always immediately sink in and take effect. And unfortunately for Tristen, when he was released and graduated from the reentry court, there were a number of really difficult things going on in the world at that time. And as we've talked about, there are always going to be really difficult things. And for someone who struggles with addiction, those are always going to be triggers for using. And Tristen relapsed. He started using alcohol. And he suffered the consequences of that. He spent a lot of time going back into jail for failing with alcohol tests. And it took him a number of times in rehab before he found a place, the Grove, where he, for the first time at the Grove, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. These were diagnoses that had never before been treated. So for the first time in his life, at that point, he got the proper mental health treatment. He got substance abuse treatment. He has been sober every day since he checked into the Grove, August 5th of 2021. He is several weeks from earning his 2-year chip. When he was revoked, well, he was put back in July of 2022 and then eventually revoked in January of 2023. He's maintained his sobriety. He has, in spite of being moved around a little bit over the past year, he has relied on self-help books. He has formed a community inside the jail and relied on the connections that he's maintained on the outside to maintain his sobriety. And I think he has demonstrated at the age of 26 now, when all of this happened many years ago, he has demonstrated that he has matured to the point and been treated to the point where he can really take the next steps, which are gainful employment, keep his relationship with his significant other who's a mental health professional, maintain his relationship with his family, 5 siblings, one of 5 siblings, none of whom are criminally involved. These are all very positive influences and what you would want for anyone going through that. And I think he is in a position to give back to his community and to share the things that he's learned through the reentry court. So I think, what's become apparent for Tristen is not that those things didn't sink in, but just some of us take a longer time for the lessons that we learned to gestate. And he had a relapse, and he has learned how to now apply what he learned in those classes to real life circumstances and difficulties. So I believe he's got a very strong reentry plan, and I hope the board can see that he's demonstrated that he is ready to come back and be under parole supervision. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pena. You know, it's obvious to me that you're a very intelligent young man. You know, I've learned a lot about you in reading your report and doing that. You probably know nothing about this board. I will tell you a little bit about me. I presided over a drug court for 14 years in the 19th Judicial District Court. I've seen people with addictions come in every day. And unfortunately, they're very bright, most of them. They're very manipulative, most of them, and they have a lot of excuses. And they want to do things their way. The Grove apparently helped you, but you got into the Grove by leaving a place where you were ordered to be. You want to do things on your own, at your own time. There are certain ways that things have to be done, especially if you're on parole, supervision, or probation. You need to do those things. You have a significantly long history of substance abuse. A 28-day program isn't the sole answer. It's a great thing. It's a good thing. And it's a good start. And it certainly appears to me that you may be on the right track. But I don't really think that you've come to grips with what your disease really is. I still see and hear the same things I've heard from drug addicts time and time again. And I'm not clairvoyant. I can't tell the future. And I'm not a lie detector. I can't tell who's really telling me the truth and really mean it or not. I believe you probably mean it. There were people in my drug court who every day said, Judge, I will never do another drug again. And they meant it, absolutely meant it, until they got back out in the real world and got caught up. Excuse, as the warden said, you got a lot of excuses. You know, COVID was horrible for everybody, but yet you still were able to find alcohol and drugs. You've got a moderate risk. You've got a criminal history. You've got a serious substance abuse problem. I just think that while you're moving in the right direction, you need more work. I'd love to see you getting into Steve Hoyle, program that could help you. You need victim impact. You're thinking for a change. I think you could use more programs before I'm ready to vote to release you. So my vote today is to deny, but encourage you to take some programs, especially substance abuse programs that allow you to understand who you are and what you do. But I'm just one vote. So Ms. Wise.
I am impressed with the support that you have. I mean, it is above average. I wrote in my notes, you're excellent family support. But they were a part of your reentry plan before you got revoked. It was already there. They didn't have to cover up nothing. You already had the girlfriend, you already had the family support. It was already there before you came back. That's concerning for me. I'm a retired probation parole officer, so that didn't get it. So my vote is to deny as well. Insufficient time served. I really appreciate what the warden say. I would urge you to trust the wisdom of the warden and that facility. Trust doing it that way. I think you'll be eligible to reapply in a fairly short period of time. So I urge you to reapply when you're eligible after you've done the programs that's been set, because you need more programs. Best wishes to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. Sir Johnson.
Pena, you're not ready. I wasn't a drug court judge, but I was a judge for 28 years and I saw a lot of drug addicts. And I echo what Judge Maribel, you can always tell when somebody really is ready. And then you can tell who's not, but they're always too anxious. They're always too anxious to get out of the situation. You know what I mean? Your desire to go home does not mean that you are ready to go, that you're equipped to go. I think you need more programs. You have a poor, history of supervision, extensive criminal history, and I think you need long-term substance abuse treatment while in DOC. So my vote likewise is to deny.
Mr. Pena, you have 3 votes to deny, but with encouragement to continue to move forward as you're doing, you can reapply when you can. So good luck to you. Thank you.